Alright, today we're going to be making our own ceramic monster wall pocket. We've got our designs created and our ideas laid out. Today we're actually going to be making it and getting it ready to be dried, fired, and then glazed. The first thing you'll do is take your slab of clay you have and use the stencil I have for you and cut out that rectangle. I'm going to take the extra clay I'm cutting off and set it to the side. I'm going to use that later for some of my monster features that we will attach onto our pocket after we make it. The next thing I'm going to do is take some of my different clay and texture tools I have in my basket and create a texture all over my rectangle. This will give our monster some texture, like a hairy texture or a pattern texture. There's lots of different ways that I can make texture on my clay. I'm going to do that with this kind of spiral tool, and I'm going to spin it on my clay to kind of create this bumpy texture. While I do it, I'm not pressing down too hard. I don't want to smush my clay so that way it's flat, but I do want to push enough that I'm getting the texture onto my clay. Now that I've got the whole front side of my clay with texture on it, we're going to do half of the back side. This is the side that will get folded up to create the pocket. So I'm very carefully going to flip my clay over, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to start by making my textures on about the bottom half of my clay. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to smush out the textures or the designs that I've made on the other side, but I want to add this as well because this will be the part that is folded up. While I'm doing this part, before I flip my clay over or smooth out any edges, I want to make sure on that solid part at the top I write my name. I'm going to scratch it in gently with a toothpick. Now before I flip my clay back over and create the pocket, I want to take just a little bit of water and smooth out the edges of my clay. This helps keep the edges from getting sharp after it's fired. So I'm going to use just a tiny bit of water on my finger and smooth out those edges. When I flip my clay back over, I'm going to smooth the edges on that as well. Now that I've got my texture on my clay and I've got my edges all smoothed out and my name on it, it's time to make our pocket. We are going to be folding up about the bottom third of our clay to create that pocket. I'm going to start just by scoring my clay on the very edge. You only want it to be about the thickness of your pinky. I want to scratch up that surface to help create that Velcro-like texture on the clay. And then I'm going to use a little bit of water, and I'm going to add that and then flip my clay over on top of itself. Now I have to be careful when I do this that I don't completely squish my clay together because I still want there to be a pocket on the inside. But I'm gently going to pick it up and smooth out those edges and that seam so it becomes one solid piece. After I get my little pocket scored and slipped and I've smoothed out that seam, then I can go back and kind of open up the pocket or the mouth of my monster just a little bit more and smooth out any pieces that I might need to. So once we've got our texture all over our clay, we've smoothed all the edges, and we've created the pocket, then we can move in to start adding our textures and features of our monster. I'm going to first add some holes at the top of my wall hanging so that way we can add our string to it later. I'm going to start by kind of moving my wall pocket to the side while I create the features of my monster. The eyes, the teeth, noses, any horns or eyebrows or anything you might want to attach to your monster. I can use all the different tools to help me create any circles or anything like that to create the eyes. As I start creating my features, I can cut and I can add textures and more designs into them as I need. Whenever I cut out one of my features, I'm always going to make sure that I smooth out any of those edges so after it's fired, we don't have any sharp edges on our clay. Once I've got all of my features cut out and made how I want them, I can start placing them onto my wall pocket and we can create our monster. Now, before I score and slip, I'm going to kind of lay them out where I want to, and then I always want to scratch up the surface of both sides and add a little water when I attach 2 pieces of clay. It's called scoring and slipping. If I don't do that, then it's more than likely that my clay pieces that I attached will come off when the water is dried out of the clay. And we don't want that to happen. As I score and slip all of my features for my monster onto my clay wall pocket, I can think about smoothing any seams out to help create a tighter and more secure bond or connection, so those pieces are less likely to fall off. So I can use different tools to help me smooth that out. Now that I've got all of the features for my monster that I want scored and slipped onto my wall pocket, I can just do any finishing touches, smooth out any edges, or correct any little dips or bumps that got into the clay as you are putting things together, because sometimes that just happens. After you get your clay how you want it, do any final touches, and then we will set it to the side, let it dry out, and get ready for glazing and firing.